I didn't think it'd get this far yet, as Patrik Laine has been demoted to the third line at practice before the Habs' next 2 games on this West Coast road trip. We have to dive into Martin St. Louis' decisions with the roster and exactly what has led to this. This situation, this 5-game losing streak is unbelievable, as we're hearing a lot of people come out speaking against Kirby, Dach, Marty benching that whole second line of Dach, Newhook, Laine. There's a ton to get into on that front. You'll want to stick around for all that. But Jesse, we also have some great news, some big prospect updates. We got to talk about a guy we don't talk about often, Logan Sawyer. We got to talk about Laine Hutson and some recent comparables to Quinn Hughes and a whole lot more, even Michael Hage. So stick around for all that coming up on this episode of Habs Digest, this live episode of Habs Digest. Welcome in, everyone. A lot of people are already upset about how the weekend went, Jesse. I know we got some fans fired up, some negativity, some positivity. This is going to be a wild one. I'm fully expecting to dive into some deep stuff here. I mean, how you feeling, first of all, to be back here for another Monday live stream, and how you feeling about the Habs as of late?
I'm feeling great to be happy to be back here for a live, but like what I'm really feeling right now, Josh, what we're forgetting is like we're on we had 5 weeks of really consistent hockey where we're really playing well. It's like we can't be just forgetting about this just right away. For sure, 5 games, it means something, for sure. But I don't think it completely overwhelms all that good hockey we can be playing, that we have done. So I think it's all about just getting back to that. There was some good structure. There was some good system to play. I believe it's there. We just kind of need to shake the dust off it right now.
Absolutely. We got some spammers in the chat already. Just gonna get rid of some of this stuff here, and there we go. We got some Leafs fans coming in trying to hijack the stream, Jesse. We're not about that here at Habs Digest, because we're trying to spread some positivity here, right? Look, the Habs have some stuff that's going wrong right now, but there's a lot of great stuff coming up for the future, and why not start with something like that? And the first one here, it's a guy we don't talk about very often, Jesse. He's one of my favorite prospects, just because, I was high on him after the draft, and again, he's just a freshman in college, so, you take it with a grain. It's okay, it's okay numbers, but we got to talk about Logan Sawyer. I mean, this guy was a 3rd round pick this past year. He's currently up to 12 points in, I think, 20 something games at Providence. So like, not mind blowing numbers, but this guy again is quite smart. His IQ was one of the biggest things, not only on the ice, but off the ice. And he recently got Rookie of the Week honors in Hockey East, Jesse. We've had Lane Hutson, I believe, win a handful of those awards, and we know Jacob Fowler has won a handful of those awards. We got another Hab getting there in Logan Sawyer. So again, his numbers aren't insane right now so far this season, but it's always fun to bring up even these guys, these 3rd round picks getting these honors in their freshman year. It's like, it's not to just be sneezed at, right? It just goes to show that the Habs have done their due diligence drafting these guys. And even if, hey, we don't know what his future is going to be, but regardless, this is a great start to his college career.
And he's back in the news. Like, he had a hot start to really begin this season. His shot just kind of jumps off the page at you, kind of first thing about him, when it's been a little bit more quiet, but he was able to get 3 points, over 2 games just this past weekend. And again, plays a complete game, a +8 for this team right now. So very nice to see him back in the news, playing some solid hockey. He's definitely a guy, as we've seen before, like, we can't discount these prospects. Kind of almost give you like Davidson vibes, right? Where it's somebody you might not think too much of until they get in the AHL and start playing very well, right? Possibly having a chance to definitely, get a look at the NHL level. So hopefully he'll look to reproduce exactly that.
I hope so, man. Like, again, I don't know why I feel so good about Logan Sawyer. He feels like one of those guys that will probably have a little bit of a longer development curve just based on like his numbers, stuff like that. Not because of his like big size or anything, because I don't think he's that big, but I don't know. Just one of those guys I got a good feeling about. And this is validating for me, all right? A lot of the fans, look, you got to be a real super fan to know that I'm a Logan Sawyer fan. But hey, now you all know, all 120 of you in here in the stream already. Unbelievable stuff. Thank you for being here. I want to go through the chat as well real quick before we dive into some other college stuff, Jesse. We got a big bit of prospect news here to talk about. But I want to say hi to everyone in the chat. Some familiar faces here. We got Frank. We got XL Sparta. Josh, positivity is nice, but also being critical is important. We'll get to that. Look, there's good reason to get to that. Now, we're not going to be like, the world is falling apart, but you're right. There is a space for being critical, but we'll hold on right there. We got a first super chat of the stream, Jesse. As Doug Saylor, keep positive. We will get there. Absolutely. Thank you, Doug. Guys, leave some love for Doug's message. Doug Rocket, Richard, tier member. Can't wait to speak to you tomorrow night. It's going to be so great. Thank you so much. Yeah, and we got Mackenzie saying, Jesse looking good. That's that camera, Jesse. You're looking crispy right now. This feed looks amazing. Joseph Donovan, channel member, best team in the biz. What up, boys? What's up, everyone? Guys, we are so excited for these Monday streams every single week. And Jesse, what better way to continue than to talk about our boy Michael Hage, and we'll spread that positivity just like Doug asked. Again, thank you so much for that super chat, Doug. Incredibly generous of you. Jesse, what is there left to be said about Michael Hage? It feels like we're talking about him after every single game. Like, he's sort of getting to that Ivan Demidov status where every time he touches the ice, we have to talk about him because he does something good. He's now up to 28 points, 12 goals in just 25 games. He is a legitimate Hobey Baker contender this year as a freshman. Now, I don't necessarily think he'll win it. There's some other good players like a Jacob Fowler. But 18 years old, the highest producing 18-year-old, you could argue the best 18-year-old in the NCAA this year. And he's a Habs pick. There's so many great things going on with him. Marc-Antoine Gaudin had a great article speaking about what's making him so good. But my gosh, Jesse, I mean, like, I feel like it's crazy to say that he's getting into the Demidov territory of how much we have to talk about him. But, like, he is. The production's unbelievable.
And that's actually such a good comp, Josh, because one of the big things that his teammates are saying about Michael Hage right now is his ability to create space for his teammates. And we know that that's what all the best players do. And that's what makes us a little bit more excited about Hage than maybe we were before. Like, the more you watch him, we're like, is there some elite upside here? Because if he continues to play the way that he does, he's definitely going to get into that type of conversation. I think he's in very good hands with his coach over at Michigan, right? Brandon Naurato, where he's coached a lot of guys that have went on to the NHL and some guys that are looking like they're going to be stars, they're at that level. And he kind of knows exactly what it kind of takes. So right now, it's just that kind of complete detail and focus to the game, but he's basically being their go-to person. They're asking a lot of him at a young age. They're asking him, like, and what they're expecting of Michael Hage is just to dominate the game through in and throughout. And they definitely wouldn't be expecting that of him if they didn't think that he is an elite level type of player. So, I mean, the more that we're watching this guy, the more that he's looking like a steal. But, I mean, that's just what he's been doing all year.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to toss a poll up because I think, absolutely, he looks like a steal. He's going to go down as one of the steals of the draft, continuing that Habs trend, Jesse, of picking up players that other teams seem to sleep on again. Like, you know, that USHL season, 75 points in 54 games is good, but a lot of people compare it to like a worse CHL is sort of what some people sometimes say. So 75 points in 54 is good, not great. But again, there was an injury. There was a lot of outs other than hockey factors with him. And right now, like, he has proven everyone who believed in him right because of the production. He could go down as a steal in the draft. We got a poll up here. I said, what is Michael Hage going to be in 2 to 3 years for Montreal? Leave your vote here. I'm saying 2C, 3C, a middle six winger, or a fourth liner. I mean, it's possible he ends up in the AHL in 2 to 3 years, but I think there's enough that we've seen enough from him, Jesse. There's so many things with him that I'm confident he'll be an NHLer. And look, if you don't think he'll be an NHLer, just vote fourth liner in the poll, which 0% of you have done already, which is a good sign. But I don't know, like, we're talking 2 to 3 years from now when Michael Hage is 20 or 21 years old. I feel like sometimes we artificially accelerate the timeline for these prospects. Yes, he's really, really good. I feel like 2 to 3 years is maybe a bit soon for a 2C. That's maybe putting our hope too high. Because remember, like, Dach is, like, what if you wait 5 years for Hage? That'll be Dach's age right now, right? So there's still a lot of time to prove himself. But I don't think it's crazy to say he'll be at least a middle six winger trying to transition to that middle six center role in 2 to 3 years. Like, I feel like I've seen a lot from him. I don't want to project too much based on, again, a small college sample size, but all the signs are there, man.
Absolutely. And he wants to be that 2C. But, for Michael Hage, like, his goals are even higher than that. Obviously, it'll probably take a couple more years than 2 to 3 to eventually get to that. Obviously, becoming a 2C would be a great accomplishment. And we know that that's part of the plan for his development. It's really to let him marinate. It's like we all know that he's going to be going back to the NCAA next year to really play and develop because he knows once he gets here in the NHL level, it's all about that. It's about being an impact type of player. But he just seems to be a guy that, again, fits, kind of the culture, having such a tradition with here. But again, plays the game with that pace when we know when Montreal is playing the best, they're always playing with pace. And guys like that, they just kind of have the ability to pick up the pace of the players around them. They just make other players play quicker just to be at their pace and really to keep up and everything. Nobody wants to be left behind on the ice. So I'm loving the fit that he's bringing to this team.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how he fits with the other prospects too, because like, look, I think probably at the end of next year, we're going to see him play a handful of games with Montreal. And hey, I'm assuming Montreal will be in the playoff race next year as well. If they're not, maybe we'd be a little concerned. So, we might see what they did with Caufield, right? Bring him in at the end of the college season, let him play a few playoff games and see how it goes. And, maybe Laval the next year, maybe not. Maybe he proves himself, right? But regardless of where he goes, he's going to get a great chance to play with other very good players. Montreal's depth is improving year over year. So, like, even now, like, we've seen young guys come in, like Joshua Roy, who had really good chemistry with a guy like Monahan, who obviously is still a great player, or Yoel Armia even. Those guys had really good chemistry and skilled guys. Montreal's roster is not going to look the same next year nor the year after. There's going to be some guys who are going to go, like Dvorak and Armia. Some new faces are going to come in. We don't even know who these guys might end up playing with, but again, the signs are there. Really excited for it, as I'm going to end the poll. And actually, the majority of you, well, not the majority, but the winning vote, I was tied. 2C and 3C in 2 to 3 years. So the fans are quite optimistic. Very few people think he'll be a fourth liner. Some people think he'll start as a winger. So very interesting stuff on Michael Hage. And I'm going to just go through some of the chats here again, Jesse, because we have another Rocket Richard member, Mark, or hello all you Habs fans. Go Habs, go. Our team is simply out of gas. They come out flying but cannot maintain the pace. They need the upcoming break. Stay positive. And he said even if Hage begins as a 3C to get accustomed to the NHL and shelter him a bit, that does not mean he can't develop into a 2C. Time will tell. Complete agreeance, Jesse, and there's some. We'll get into the team being out of gas in a bit, but yeah, I mean, like, I think there's a world where Hage becomes a 3C very, very soon. But Jesse, there's one other prospect before we get into this game stuff that we got to talk about. And I think you know who it is. I think we got to talk about our boy, the Laine train, Laine Hutson, because oh my gosh, has he been unbelievable? And I just got an interesting graphic to show you all. Take a look at this. So the Laine Hutson card got updated from Hockey Prospecting. Look at the comparison to Quinn Hughes. This is unbelievable stuff. You can see here, Laine Hutson still listed as a developing D because he is. But oh my goodness, that NHL D+3 NHLE is now comparable to Quinn Hughes. Very, very similar. And if you look at the full comparisons, we have players like Rasmus Dahlin, Paul Coffey, Chris Pronger, Cam Fowler, and Brian Leetch. A few of those names we've heard compared to Laine Hutson before. And if you go to Quinn Hughes, he has also superstar comparisons as well. But Jesse, to see this finally come out this way, are all the people hating, including some Leafs fans that come in here. Someone saying zoom it in. I can't really zoom it in any further than it is right now. Sorry, maybe I'll try and find a better screenshot. But regardless, all you need to know is the comparison to Quinn Hughes is there right now. And he's actually arguably on a better trajectory than Quinn Hughes is. How unbelievable was it to see this today?
Absolutely incredible. And if we look at some of the comparisons for Quinn Hughes, it's actually listed Laine Hutson in that of what Quinn Hughes can become. And I mean, this is wild of what we're seeing right now because of the implications, right? Like Quinn Hughes had 92 points last year. If we're projecting that Laine Hutson's going to become better, than this player, obviously it's like the implications, like what, Laine Hutson becoming 100-point type of player, because it's not out of the realm of possibility whatsoever. The crazy thing is like the eye test, when we saw kind of, Vancouver versus Montreal, obviously Quinn Hughes was, a little bit injured in that game, coming back from an injury. But I mean, like Laine Hutson did look better. Mm-hmm. Like the eye test does absolutely back this up. And that's what's absolutely so wild about this. But like we're seeing it every night. That's what's so refreshing about this. Sometimes we need to see the numbers just for that check of just how actually incredible relatively what he's doing right now. Like for sure, like we've seen the comparisons with Laine Hutson and Brian Leetch. It's just followed him around since the NCAA, and just the fact that it's still kind of continuing on now with some of the greats in the game. I mean, it's just phenomenal to see of what the future really holds for this team. Like as he's coming to his peak, this team's coming into the peak. The stars just seem to have aligned here.
I don't know. It always freaks me out when I see born in 2004 and he's 20 years old, almost 21. That's just a weird thing. Anyway, but you're absolutely right. The stars are aligning. Now, I will say the caveat here is that NHLE, which is what these like, not what it's fully based on, but NHLE is basically just your points, right? It's based off mainly point totals in various leagues, right? So like Hutson versus Hughes. It's sort of like the projection for points in the NHL, but regardless, the comparisons are the comparisons for a reason. Those are the players that most closely align with this level of production from their draft year to their draft +1, draft +2, draft +3 in the NHL. And Quinn Hughes, it's again very similar. Lane Hutson could very well end up having more points than Quinn Hughes in the coming years, like relative to when they were drafted, when they started playing in the NHL, because Quinn Hughes is still a Norris caliber defenseman. I'll give him that, but it is unbelievable to say. So I'm going to look through the people are very, thank you. I zoomed it in. Thank you for the suggestion as well. But there's a lot of people very, very excited about Lane Hutson's. We are too. And Jesse, we actually have a great super chat here. Thank you, Ethan, for the super chat, $10. If Lane Hutson is putting up the same amount of points next year with the cap going up, how much would you give him on a contract? Now, this isn't something we necessarily prepared for today, but that's a great question because we can extend him starting this summer. And, well, come on, focus on my face. Don't focus on the guys behind me. There are some questions with this, Jesse. Like, my thought is this. I think they'll probably give him a bridge deal because I think it's probably what Lane Hutson's going to want just because we know how much the cap's going up in the next few years. Montreal will probably want to, keep him around as long as they can, but I'm guessing a 2 to 3 year bridge deal to show, like, for him to get his bag at the end of that bridge deal and for Montreal to, like, maybe let's make sure this is for real. Montreal probably wants to lock him up long term. I think, like, I would love to sign him to an 8-year extension as soon as we can, but I'm thinking a bridge deal might make more sense. But then again, Jesse, I don't know, like, I'm probably comfortable. Like, I mean, the question was, if he keeps putting up the same amount of points next year, what would we pay him? But we can extend him as early as this summer. I'm legitimately thinking he's going to be that first member of the young core to surpass the Suzuki contract. I don't think Montreal's going to want to do that, but we might have to.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, like, that number is definitely more than Guhle. Like, Lane Hutson already has surpassed Guhle on kind of that depth chart there. Absolutely. So for me, it's like, if there's one player on the Habs that you want to lock up long term, it's Lane Hutson. Mm-hmm. This guy's getting the comps to Brian Leetch, Paul Coffey, everybody else. And for me, it's like he's shown more consistency in his career than Juraj Slafkovsky. Love Slav. Yeah, originator of the Slavzilla fan club here. But it's like, at the same time, he has shown just more. And it's like, if they're that eager to give him that type of deal, like Lane Hutson, if there's one guy you really want to secure for that future, and you got to feel like the bigger deals will kind of come. But if you're able to do this relatively soon, I feel like even with the cap going up, still there isn't that precedent of those numbers kind of jumping up. So you can still really get a number going longer term that you still feel comfortable with.
Yeah, and like I see some people saying 5.5 to 6.5 mil for 8 years. Someone saying 4 mil for 6 years. Thank you again, Ethan, for the donation. I think people are undershooting what he's actually going to get, especially with the cap going up. Like, more than Guhle for sure. I'm legitimately thinking that this dude could easily demand, like, if we're talking an 8-year extension, he's gonna ask for $8 million a year, like, at least. Like, I think we're talking those terms, right? And Slav is amazing, but look at what he got. He got almost $8 million after like a 50-point-ish season. So it's like, Lane Hutson, better point production. Like, I know, anyway, there's a lot more question marks. Someone says 6 years, 7.874. It's like $10,000 less per year than Nick Suzuki. That's actually a good point, Mackenzie. But, like, yeah, someone said Subban contract, 8x9. That was a long time ago too. So it's like there's these comparables out there. I think he's going to get more than people are thinking. But let us know your thoughts. Actually, let's just put up a poll because the poll is the best way to interact with people here. So how much per season would you pay Lane on an 8-year extension? And let's just say less than 6 mil. And I'll put, I don't know, let's see, 6 mil to 7 mil, and then we'll go 7 mil to 8 mil, and then we'll go 8 mil plus. I think it's going to get 8 mil plus. That would be my vote, not to skew the fans, but I want to see what some people say, because again, the point production, Jesse, like if I just show this graphic again, where was it? Was it here? No, it was in this one, and I brought it up here just to make it bigger. These numbers are crazy. Like legitimate superstar offensive defenseman numbers. I mean, Jesse, would you look, if he does do this next year and Montreal maybe extends him next year, do you ever think about touching, like, could he be the first Hab to get 10 million? I think that's too much. I don't think Montreal would want to do that. Like, I think they'd really back down at that idea, especially considering the culture and the fit they have with the other contracts. But Would it be insane if Laine said that's what I want with the cap going up? Like, again, 10 mil today, or 10 mil in 3 years is going to be the same as 8 mil today. And I think that's where it's starting to get scary, and these contract numbers are going to start inflating and look like worse than they actually are.
Laine Hutson is all about the team, and that's the best part about this
Agreed.
person as well. I don't want to infer too much, but based on how he plays the game, which is generally a pretty good indicator, this guy cares more about the team than anything else. He's going to make the high percentage play. He doesn't mind getting the assists instead of the goal if it's a guaranteed goal in that type of case. He just shows it all the time. I'm not saying that he's going to ask for, going to go for a team-friendly deal just because of that, but the signs are there. Like, it's funny to comment, like maybe something just kind of a smidge before Suzuki. Like, for sure, there's not a huge track record. So if you're the agent for Hutson, for sure you could argue those bigger numbers, but I think they would be countered by the fact, well, he hasn't done this over a huge sample size. So that could be a good way to negotiate to kind of get that number back down. At the same time, there's the precedent Slav, right? Yep. Where it's like basically just a season of doing that, and he was able to secure, that long-term type of deal, right? So you'd have to think even more reason for Hutson here. But you just have to feel like, it's about finding that term with him, but probably it's going to be a huge priority because for me, I'm not worried about Hutson's game kind of falling off or something. Like, there's very few players where I feel that confident about. I didn't know Laine Hutson as well as I really am acquainted with him now as a member of the Montreal Canadiens. Like, the way this guy has such a work ethic, the way he's in the gym, the way he trains so much, how intelligent he is in way of processing the game. Like, these are all very strong indicators for him continuing this. For sure, nothing's, a sure shot. He's still very small in the NHL where the wrong hit can really hurt somebody. But he's just showing everything that Laine train where he can take a beating. It's like, you're not hitting the Laine train. The Laine train's hitting you.
Yeah.
He's all about that body positioning. Like, somehow this small guy is this, just knocking guys off the puck. We've seen it a couple times to the ice on more than one occasion, right? So it's, just how Laine Hutson will just continue to surprise us.
Absolutely. And like, he's surprising already, is like unbelievable the production he has. And some people saying like Seider got $8.5 million after a 50-point rookie season. Seider's bigger, has some more to his game, maybe a little bit more defensively, but like, again, that was years ago. Cap going up. Not crazy to say Laine will get more. But Jesse, I want to, before we get in, we actually do have a sponsor for this, and we'll get into that in just a second. So stick around for that. But I do want to mention again, Ethan, another $10 super chat. Got to answer this question. Thank you so much for the support, Ethan. You've been such a big supporter lately on the channel, these streams. Love having you here. Quick question, Jesse. Would you trade Primeau if Fowler goes to the AHL next year? Because Laval already has Hughes, and you're going to want to develop Fowler the best you can if Dobeš keeps doing it with Montreal. Absolutely no question, 100% yes. Like, you just do, right? Like, if you can get something for Primeau that's not like nothing, you don't want to focus on me, you do it. That's kind of my opinion. Right this season, you still need him. He's rolling in Laval. He's amazing for the team. We'll see if Connor Hughes stays. I think he's on a 1-year deal. But if Fowler comes in and is that primary guy next year, again, that's a lot of pressure. But to me, you got to move Primeau if that is the option.
And as soon as this trade deadline, the way that he's playing right now, against all odds, there's literally no way that Cayden Primeau could have went down into Laval Rocket the AHL and play better. Like, we're picking at straws at that point because, like, just logically speaking, like, he's played as good as you can reasonably expect, having a very high bar there for that. So the way he's doing is like, from this trade deadline, from something, if not in the offseason, you have to feel like he's going to get an opportunity in the NHL. You have to make that place. What's unfortunate, even if Primeau does find his game again in the NHL, it won't be in Montreal. That's the way it is. The competition is so tight. Jakub Dobeš is just taking that spot, and I don't see him for that point, kind of relinquishing that either. So it'll have to be somewhere else, but he's going to get that opportunity. He will be traded somewhere else to kind of further his progression. I mean, that'll be interesting to see if he does get a shot again in the NHL. I
mean, the thing is, especially with how he's performed in Laval, I think Montreal's going to at least want to sign him to something to keep him around. And then maybe trade him later, because obviously you can't trade him if he's still an RFA. So, like, it depends. Like, could be this deadline, like you mentioned, right? Because I think that, like, his value is at his highest it's been in a long time. I don't know how you fill in. Like, maybe you just run with Connor Hughes and Luke Kavelin. Kind of sucks for a team that's been pushing so strong, but we'll have to wait and see. Great question, Ethan. As we got Some channel memberships gifted, Jesse, from Joseph Donovan. Thank you so much, Joseph, for supporting us. If I read your name, you're now a channel member. You can send all the emojis you want. We got some great ones. We got Laine, we got Lane Train. As you see Plonko sending there, send the same things that Plonko sends. XL Sparta, a consistent viewer as well. Thank you. Tyrantar5, The Zelhord, Felix Laram, and Frank David. Thank you all for being here. You are now all channel members, courtesy of Joseph Donovan. Leave Joseph a big thank you. Unbelievable stuff. But Jesse, we do want to get into one thing with 233 people in this stream. We want to very much thank the sponsor of this video, Simulation Hockey League, the SHL. Ever wanted to go pro in hockey? Come live out the dream in the Simulation Hockey League. You can create your dream pro hockey player and customize their attributes and play style in a big thriving community of hundreds of active players.
Yeah, and it doesn't stop there, right? You go from getting drafted to training camp to one day getting into the SHL. And there's just so much involved, even when it comes to commentary, to stats. There's just everything in this for you to enjoy if you love hockey and interacting with others.
And the best thing, Jesse, it's completely free. And you can earn in-game currency, like you said, for being a reporter, making graphics, writing articles, or even better, playing yourself. You can grow into an SHL Hall of Famer by earning points to upgrade your attributes, by doing tasks like predicting the outcome of matches or scoring goals.
Absolutely. And we know here at Habs Digest, you guys love community. That's why you're going to love the SHL, where you can really interact with others while making the team of your dreams.
You can catch up on game results, player stats, even advanced stats on the SHL Index. You can catch up on everything you need to do. You can even watch live simulations. There's live streams, a bunch of great stuff. So come join a community of enthusiasts all striving to win the cup and have a good time doing so. Click the link in the description of the pinned comment down below, and shout out to the SHL, the Simulation Hockey League, for sponsoring this video. I was muted. Sorry. Thank you again, Simulation Hockey League. There we go. We mute some things. We make it work. Thank you so much. The unbelievable stuff they're doing over there. Go click the Discord link to see the Simulation Hockey League. Join them. It's unbelievable. You get to create your own player and live as a pro. It's completely free. There's some great stuff. Shout out to them. I see Tyrantar5 saying, hey, oh, that's our league. If that's you, Tack, I don't know. Maybe you're a part of this league. Shout out to them. Let us know if you got any questions. Send them in the chat as well. Real good stuff. Check out the website. Hey, no problem, Tyrantar5. Glad you could get that membership. Send your Slafzilla emoji. It works well with your Tyrantar username, if that's a Pokemon reference. We'll see. Yeah, unbelievable stuff. Thank you all again. We got to get back to the chat though, Jesse. Mark Orr sent something again. Would love responding to Mark's comments here. Don't get me wrong. Primeau is not in our future, but his success now in the fact that he's playing on one of the best teams in the AHL. While he was here, we were one of the worst teams in the NHL. Just before we move on to the Habs' performance this weekend, Jesse, how much of Primeau's performance do you think is due to the fact that Laval has a bolstered roster and some very good defensemen like Engstrom and Mailloux stepping up? Or do you think there is a lot of his own volition too? Because he looked uncomfortable in the NHL and a little sloppy, but I think it's a bit of both. I don't want to dive too deep on Primeau right now because I guess there'll be a lot more to talk about, but I definitely see that being the case. But hey, I mean, if his value's going up, it's going up.
Yeah, and probably a little bit of a combination. I think Primeau knows, that he probably needed to be a little bit better at the NHL level, but like he's just taken full ownership of it for sure. As we've seen with Montembeault in the past, like the team in front of you does matter. It definitely does. It's absolutely a team game. We know that Montreal Canadiens were some of the highest in the league of giving up those slot opportunities right there. So obviously, I think that is a part of it for him. But thankfully, by the way he's playing, he'll get a shot in the NHL and get his chance again.
100%. Really excited. All right. Well, everyone, this is the part that we were... New version of OBS popping up. Rhyme me later. Thank you. Why in the... Anyway, so... Mark said, just saying he may flourish elsewhere. I hope he does too, Mark. I really hope he does too. People say he's a trade asset. I mean, look, it's possible. I don't... Trade ready at maybe. But we got to talk about the team right now. We got to talk about the state of this team from this weekend. Look, there's a lot of stuff happening, Jesse. There's a lot of changes, and we got to just dive into these. Because Martin St. Louis benched the whole second line in that game against Anaheim. Blew a 2-0 lead.
The whole line.
All of them. Even our boy Alex. He was playing some fourth line minutes in place of Pizzetta because you got to do that with a few players during the game. But this was nuts, right? We've seen some benchings here and there of Slaf, of Dach at times, but this was a whole line. And Marty St. Louis had some crazy stuff to say, basically saying, like, Dach and Laine were not helping us win games. Like, they just weren't doing the right things. And, Eric Engels, like, these articles that I'm referencing are linked down below. Go check them out. But, like, Kirby Dach made egregious mistakes on 2 of Anaheim's 3 goals. He played just 2 shifts in the third period. Laine and Newhook were dominated through the first 35 minutes of play with him. 4 of Newhook's 5 shifts in the third came as a fill-in on the 4th line. And we even have this other article from the Hockey News saying, like, Dach's offense has to pick up. He has 5 fewer assists than Yoel Armia this season, Jesse. And his face-off percentage is not good, 39%. I don't want to get too down right now, and I want to hear the fans' opinions of this, but, like, we'll get into the line combinations at practice today in just a second. You guys will want to stick around for that, but do you think this was the right decision? I do. I'll explain why after, but it has some fans kind of divided.
I think you do have to do it at a certain point. I would have to say, guys, like, I'm more upset with Kirby Dach than I am with Patrik Laine. I still want more and everything else, but still, what Patrik Laine's done in a lot of ways has been remarkable. For sure, we all know there's that asterisk of them all being on the power play for the most part. Not all of them, pretty close. Still, pretty good of a start. For sure, that doesn't chalk it up, to being able to just, not maybe put that full effort out on the ice. But I feel like something similar to what happened with Cole Caufield will happen with Patrik Laine at a certain point. Kirby Dach, on the other hand, that production, 19 points in, 51 games, not being too great on the draws. We know that there's the injury. We know that's coming back, and we've seen some good signs from him of late as well, but we've also seen the inconsistency and also consistency of all the wrong things, taking bad stick penalties.
Yeah.
We know at the end, like the worst possible period, it's a tied game going into the third. The last thing you want to do is just kind of like, take a penalty going into that to kind of, so it's not quite that even playing field, which you really need kind of approaching a decisive third period. We've just seen that time and time again, and that's an example of, again, we don't want to hound on players, but there's some examples of players that put the team first, as maybe we mentioned with Elaine Hutson. I think you can put like a Nick Suzuki, into that, Gallagher, obviously. And then, there's some other players where they're doing certain things by their actions where they're not putting the team first. I think, and Dach is there, but Laine, I think, is fair to put into that equation. But we're not necessarily used to that tough love all the time, but we're in that rebuild right now where I think it's a little bit more of a mature player where you can really do that. I don't know how reactionary it may be, but we know the problem with the Montreal Canadiens right now. Over our last 5 games losing streak, we've been averaging 1.6 goals.
Oh, yeah.
There's no big what's going on with the Montreal Canadiens? We can't figure out we're not scoring enough. We have the Nick Suzuki line, which they've shown pretty consistently, but it's hard to just depend on the same players every night. That's why it's a team game. You need when maybe they're kind of slacking a little bit, for lack of a better word, that obviously the other teams in your second line is going to pick it up. And that's when they're not playing, that's when the team is kind of going down. A lot of Dach's poor play is kind of coinciding with that losing streak there as well. But again, Dach has shown this good signs. Like this team, Laine has shown good signs. And I don't believe with these last stretch of bad play a little bit, where we're still getting some points, that completely throws it out completely, that we just forget about the amazing stuff that Laine's done, how Dach is showing those good signs. If he just continues on what he's been doing, he can become that good player. If he kind of picks up over that play late, it's just about doing that right now.
Yeah, we've seen what he can be, and it's kind of crazy to see that, peak Kirby Dach. I mean, we saw a glimpse of it a few games ago, right? But that peak Kirby Dach came 2 years ago. That feels crazy to say, right? That best version of him, that version of him looks better than the version of him now. And again, taking a full year to recover from surgery is normal. I mean, we saw it even with Caufield. Now, Caufield improved other aspects of his game. A lot of Dach's issues are again, those penalties, it's a bit of mental stuff as well, which can be fixed. It's not so much his skill coming back, right? Because we can still see those amazing passes and goals, but it's I don't know, it's a little concerning. I don't know. I don't want to be too hard on the guys, but like some people have said, there is a time to be critical, and I don't want to just say that everything is fine with Dach and Laine when it's clearly not, right? There are effort issues at times with these guys, and look, who are we to say? Or we're streaming here talking about the Habs. I'm not saying that they're any less motivated than me. No. But I'm just saying what I see on the ice, they're sloppy things that no one else on the team is doing. And that's all I can judge based on, right? Compared to me, he's amazing. Compared to the other guys in the team, slacking. And that's why Marty St. Louis benched him. But I gotta say, I love this. And here's the main reason I love this, Jesse. We were talking about Martin St-Louis many times. When, for example, Justin Barron would make a bad mistake. Guess who's right back out there the next shift? Hey, prove yourself that you can do something good. It's Justin Barron. Marty giving these guys these second chances. And now we've seen this team be one of the best teams in the NHL, the best team for the course of a month, from December 17th to the end of January. They were the best team in the league. Most points percentage, most wins, most goals per game. We saw that happen. It put Montreal firmly in the mix. I mean, they're still kind of in the mix. Like, it's, where is it? I mean, they're only 5 points out of a playoff spot, which is a lot to make up, but also considering Boston's played 2 more games than them, you could really compare them more so to the Islanders. Like, on average, we're probably 3 to 4 points out of a playoff spot, which is insane to say. To be fair, also, we're just as far from picking 4th overall as we are that second wildcard spot, which is kind of nuts. Or I should say 6 points out of a playoff spot, not 5. But, like, you know, we're still climbing up there. But still, like, I don't know. Marty had this team playing great. The team started playing bad. All the boo birds are coming out and people saying fire Marty again. But I love that he's playing hardball with this. And it's not just in the games, Jesse. This update we got from practice is absolutely insane. Look at these lines. Look at the second line. Like, David Reinbacher was playing as a forward today because it was a therapy day for Josh Anderson. Don't expect him to be playing next game. But to me, like, you put Laine on the third line. This isn't just like this might just be mixing it up for practice to see. But there's a reason Reinbacher filled in on that second line. Because that tells me, Jesse, that, like, we've seen them all mixed up here. I think Anderson's going to be on that second line. I think Laine is down with Evans and Armia. Now, this might just be big Finland trying to assert their power and prepare for the Four Nations. That's possible. But this demotion is one of the biggest things to me that shows Marty cares so much now about proving that you can't just slack. Now, you could argue whether it should be Dach or Laine. Dach's more of a center. It's easier to move Laine with other line mates, I would say. You could have Newhook playing center, but Dach's been a better center. To me, I'm glad that Marty's taken a stand against this. He's seen this team can win. We're now in the mix. Guess what? Not playing good enough, you're demoted in the lineup. But what do you think about this development from practice?
Marty's upset, and I'm hope that Dach is kind of, getting that there. Again, the silver lining, which the team, again, very much knows. And believe me, they're competitive. They want points every single night. We sometimes think it's maybe not for lack of effort. I think it's going to come around. It's a tight race. 6 points out here. Again, we could be having a very different conversation, and I partially expect us to in a couple weeks, because we see, right? That's the ebbs and flows of a season. Like, that's naturally, it's not just going to be the same narrative the entire season as it's going on. We've kind of exceeded expectations, and it's about to kind of getting back into that conversation once again. I think we need to keep that in the picture. If we're looking at who's going to fill in for Reinbacher here, which I think is a face, with him being injured, is pretty fair to say here, there's some interesting things here, Josh. Like, I think Gallagher probably getting that jump up onto that second line, playing with Kirby. And what's interesting is then you have Laine with Evans. And the thing I like about that is you're kind of mixing two players that have some solid work ethic in Evans and Gallagher and mixing them up, because that's kind of the one issue. I find, like, I've always said all the time, like, with Kirby talk, like, we know it's a good player. Like, it's just about kind of putting it together, maybe simplifying. On that second power play unit, Kirby Dach needs to shoot the puck. Yeah. Like, am I not wrong? Like, he's clearly the best player on the ice in that situation, but he's way too passive. He's looking to set it up all the time when he needs to be the trigger point, make a pass, get open, loop around, take that shot once it comes around to you. Because for me, that's a big thing for him. I'd say probably in his game as well, of just actually realizing how good that he is, So I think it's actually, it's a good problem if that's kind of the solution to have there. So interesting to see what maybe playing with Gallagher and then again having Evans, maybe that influence on the third line, how that could potentially influence the play from both Laine and Dach here.
Yeah, like there's a lot of different ways we could go here, right? And again, like, this is just random shuffle practice lines. This could change before the game, but I do think it is a statement that you don't have Laine skating with the normal second line guys. And hey, you're right. I think some different line mates is going to do him some good. And I really like the idea with Evans because it's a high effort guy. And hey, even if it does end up being this line here with Evans and Armia, like Armia, again, more of a puck possession guy who's really good on the forecheck as well. Evans is solid on the forecheck, good defensive guy. Laine's going to look weird if he's not fitting in with that style, right? Now, Laine's not much of a forechecker. He can be not much of a defensive player. I think he's big enough to be able to have an effect on the game. And who knows how playing with Armia will affect him. Or, like you said, you put a guy like Gallagher there, Gallagher and even Evans, and these guys who are gritty, get into the dirty spaces. Laine can feed off of that. There's so many interesting things that we can get into there. I miss Emil Heineman. That's one thing I'm noticing every single day here, because I think Laine with Heineman, maybe on different lines. The same line would be kind of nuts. It'd be like it'd be like twins on opposite wings, right? Obviously Laine better, but yeah, that's crazy. We got a lot of people talking about this right now as well in chat, Jesse. As I put up a poll asking what your grade is overall for Laine this season, A, B, C, or D. No F and no S, because neither of those are really applicable in my mind. I think A, B, C, or D is a good range. No one is giving him an A grade for this season, and I think that's fair. 55% are saying B, 42% are saying C, the rest are saying D. Do you have a letter grade? I think B would be mine as well. That amazing hot start, but there have been those moments. Again, I do think once he gets a full season of like prep under his belt, gets actual time to recover from his injury, be coming into next season fully fresh, he will improve in a lot of the things that we're not seeing. But I will say the comments about him being slow, like someone in the chat said, are ringing a bit more true. I think B is fair. I would even maybe say like B to B plus, considering especially what we paid for him. But for his contract, I think B is probably right about where he is. What do you think?
It's a B right now. It's been an A, and the question is, can it get back to an A?
Yeah.
Because the way that he was started, it was electric. Like, we couldn't believe it. Like, how is this guy just scoring all the time, like the same play, and where your opposition just literally can't stop? Like, that's terrifying for the opposition, by the way. Like, when you do a play where you just know it's going to work, you're going to run it, and there's just nothing that they can do against it. It's just like a slow-moving train kind of coming at you, right? So that's the effect of the dynamics that he can really have on this team. Like, when the Montreal Canadiens power play is cooking, we saw it during this winning streak. They're winning games. They kind of need it, and that's a stat just throughout the NHL. If your power play is cooking, generally speaking, you give yourself a really good chance to be a playoff team right from there. So we know what Montreal needs to do kind of moving forward. And obviously Laine and Dach are huge parts of this for the rest of the season and determining how that goes.
I think Dach can be, like you said earlier, like shoot more on the power play. He's averaging less than a shot a game over his last 6. I think he can really be a hub on that second power play. I just haven't seen it yet. Like, I feel like when the second power play's out there, I feel like the puck's on Gallagher's stick too much. I feel like Gallagher's the kind of guy that you want the puck, and I don't mean this in a bad way. It's not that I don't want him touching the puck, but when Gallagher's at his best, when he touches the puck, it's a shot, right? Like, he's touching the puck, it's for a split-second one-timer. It's him banging away in front of the net. It's not him trying to play a possession game. Not that he's horrible at it. He can win board battles and stuff. He's so gritty, but like, I feel like the possession game has been a bit weird on that second power play, and Kirby is someone that thrives at that, right? So, anyway, again, without Heineman being that real shooting threat, it is a little rough to see. Dvorak out there, hey, he scored last game. I mean, I'll give that to him on the power play, nonetheless. But, yeah, still very interesting stuff. I do want to go through the chat as I'm going to end that Laine poll. Majority of people saying B. Some people saying crazy how Joseph saying one bad mark lowers your score. Very true, but it's been more than one bad mark. It's been a trend over the last few games, but very, very, very true. One person voted A, so that's good. I want to go through the chat here. We got XL Sparta now, channel member. Great to be here. Even Ethan Mods, who's been donating so much today. The issue with Dach, he has good stints and bad stints. You can't have a top 6 issue with Laine. He has bad relations with coaches and players. I hope that is. Sparta saying a bit more lenient on Laine and Dach, but enough's enough, I guess. Are you guys going to talk about trade ideas and possibilities? Wasn't planning to for this stream. Look, I mean, if someone incentivizes us to talk about it this stream, maybe we will. But I think we got a lot of videos coming up, Jesse. I mean, we got to talk about Savard, talk about Evans. You know what? That kind of prompts just a quick impromptu question. Does this losing streak affect Montreal's plans at the deadline at all? Because I think not just this losing streak, but I think if we see a pattern of this continuing, like Kent Hughes has said, like, if you're not firmly in the mix, that changes your trade plans, right? That changes whether we would trade Evans or Savard. So I actually do think this losing streak does have implications on who we trade and for what.
Absolutely. And I have mentioned that several times. Like, it's going to be huge with this whole Evans situation. I think Savard's maybe a far gone conclusion unless they really kind of get lowballed there. But with Evans, absolutely. Like, this is going to factor into this in an absolutely huge way. I kind of felt regardless, like, even if the Habs are playing well, like Kent Hughes is patient, like it's going to come down close to that trade deadline regardless there. But obviously this is going to factor in hugely into this.
100%. We actually got a big super chat again from Ethan Mods. Ethan, again, unbelievable supporter. Thank you so much for the $20 donation. He said, I think Slav should go to his one-timer spot on the PP. On the opponent's PK, they're always watching either Laine or Caufield. If you can get them to target both sides of the ice, you will get more opportunities. And oh my gosh, the fans are already liking that message. Leave some more love for Ethan, guys. Only 3 likes on that message is criminal. Get that to at least 10. Come on, you got to give some love for someone supporting us that much. Thank you so much, Ethan. Blanco, amen. Been saying this the whole season. Yeah, Jesse, I mean, you've been saying it. I've been saying it. Why isn't he doing it? He's been doing it in practice. We've seen him be in that spot and score goals from that spot. I'm surprised that he hasn't been there. Like, I know you want to balance. Like, you got Suzuki over there making those cross-ice passes, whether to Caufield or Laine, setting plays up. But since the power play especially is not working, I would love to see Slav rip some one-timers. What's to lose at this point? The power play has not been clicking for about a month, even with Laine out there. What's to lose?
We can't forget about our boy here. Like, he's got a great shot from that side. I think it absolutely needs to become more of a look. Like, great in front of the net, but we're not giving enough recognition to his skill set.
Yeah.
We're not giving enough credit by just sticking him there in front of, because he's not a one-trick pony. Like, this guy can do it all. And the best version of Slav is really where he's in motion, where you put him in a situation to kind of get, loose pucks, and he's a little bit more mobile and dynamic, I find, because he's obviously such a great playmaker as well. And kind of having him, it kind of frees him up for his playmaking as well. It's not just his shot, but it's also like this guy has the hardest passes on the Montreal Canadiens. We saw it like last night. It's almost like he almost passes too hard. We saw like last night, like a couple passes got missed just because he's putting so much hot sauce on it that like they're not able to quite handle it, which is a great skill. Just need to be ready. It's about kind of maybe finding that sweet spot there. But I mean, you'd love it if he just keeps whipping in the way that he can and that his teammates can just adjust, because I'd really like to see him just a little bit more dynamic. And I believe at a certain point, like, we're going to start seeing that as well. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, and I've been big on the fact that this is still a learning year. And I feel like now, like, I know the winning the games, trying to get in the playoffs is a big goal right now. But especially when, like, things start to not work, you can go back to the plan, and the plan has worked. That whole stretch was amazing. The plan worked out great. Then Heineman gets hit by a car and everything falls down the toilet. But I feel like switching things up is still a good thing. Let people learn different roles. Like, what better time than now to get Slav more power play reps on that one-time side than ever? Like, it's easier to learn it now when he's 20, when the power play is not rolling, than it is like, oh, crap, we need this now that Laine's gone and Slav's 22, 23 trying to learn this stuff. Not saying it's impossible, but players getting into the habit of doing stuff when they're young, even if it's just a little bit of experience, can go a long way. And I think that just trying out different things with how young this team is still and how much there is left to learn for so many of these guys is a great, great, great plan. I mean, we're seeing like, hey, power play one wasn't working. Let's put Hutson out there instead of Matheson. I mean, I don't know how many other changes they're going to make, but that was a little obvious, I will say. But still, like, it's kind of crazy. And we got a lot of people here saying a bunch of stuff in the chat, Jesse, talking about this. And like, go back to you, Tyranitar 5 saying, I think the streak does make the Habs sellers, light sellers, but sellers nonetheless. Again, I don't know if it's just this streak, but again, Jesse, with trade pace picking up, like, I don't know, because I think other teams are looking like, holy crap, the trades are coming through day after day now. We got to rush if we want to get the player we want. The deadline's in a month, but right now, like, Montreal's got some quick decisions to make. Because I think if they hold out until the deadline, a lot of the teams wanting the guys that they have will have already made a move, right? Because they're trying to be ahead of the market. Like, I don't think the streak's going to affect it, but I think, like, Montreal's going to have a pretty good showing in these next 2 games versus San Jose and LA. If they don't show up against these 2 games, like, I think these 2 games have a bigger impact than we think on when Montreal might make their first move.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like, with Evans, there is like lots of complicated things, which I think could kind of prolong that still. Like, those negotiations probably aren't easy there. But, with Savard, we know with Kent Hughes, once he gets his price, he's ready to go. But obviously we see one trade kind of affects the other. Like, we've just been seeing a lot of movement of late. We've seen, the 4 nations almost kind of like an artificial kind of trade deadline with so much kind of going on, almost, preamble or what makes for, possibly a very busy time kind of coming up for the Montreal Canadiens. But we know Kent Hughes, we know his MO, he's got its price, and he's going to stick to it, and that's why we can have faith in these negotiations.
Full faith, absolutely. And we actually got an interesting comment from Derek Rendell saying, Jared Davidson would help our second unit PP, but the problem is Hughes wants to give Pascal Vincent everything to win a championship. I agree. I don't think calling up one player to fix your second power play is a good idea anyway, especially since, like, Heineman might be back right after the 4 nations, and we don't know exactly when he'll be back. You can make some tweaks, like, you know, like, are we fully convinced Jared Davidson would be like that much better than sticking Josh Anderson on the second power play? I don't know, right? Like, there's like, if you put Josh Anderson in the AHL, he'd be putting up better stats than Jared Davidson. I'll tell you that much. Like, anyway, I know Anderson's not a power play guy. It's just a random reference or little aside there. We do have another super chat from Blanco with the €2. Thank you so much, Blanco. Such a loyal viewer. Been here for so long. Ahoy. Hoping for a strong comeback after the Four Nations. They need that break to sort things out. It's a good reset. I agree, Joseph. I agree, Mystic. They need to take a break. The team's dead. No energy. Pacific road trip, Jesse, heading into the Four Nations. You think this is going to be a good reset for the squad?
Yeah, I think we got a couple of games that we can definitely win. It's just about putting that full effort. We've seen really great hockey, which is so funny, right? But then, like, it's almost like just getting that consistency. You know, it's like that first period doesn't need to be at stellar, just as long as you're kind of holding it down in that second and third. So I think that's something that is doable. You know, I think that that's something that, and the Montreal Canadiens have learned lots of good habits, but it's about getting to it again. Like, having guys out like Heineman hurt, but at the same time, it shouldn't be lost on this team of why was Heineman effective? It's because he's skating with speed and he's forechecking, he's getting in deep. So if you do the same thing as an NHL player, more than capable of doing, you know, coming in with some speed, some physicality, that's going to help a lot for this team, right? We've seen how that style of play has worked so well. Really simplifying it has been the key to their success.
My goodness, Ethan, unbelievable. Thank you so much for the $50 donation. Ethan, unbelievably generous. Guy, everyone in chat, we got 265 of you. Everyone leave some love for Ethan right now. I know you did last time, but like, please do. This is unbelievable. Thank you. Seriously, from the bottom of our heart. He said, I was watching Drew Deeks last night. Drew is an awesome guy. Love Drew. Was watching Drew Deeks last night. He said if he was to try and trade for someone, it would be Malkin. Put him on your second line with Demidov next year. He has a fellow countryman to help him adjust, and you have a solid 2C for 1 or 2 years. That's an interesting one. I haven't really thought about Malkin. I suppose his name has been like one of those untouchables for Pittsburgh. I don't look, if Pittsburgh's willing to move him, I would rather Crosby, but that seems like it's never going to happen. Maybe Malkin's slightly more likely if Pittsburgh collapses. Whether it's Malkin or someone else like, you know, Kirill Kaprizov, if he decides to leave Minnesota, I don't think he will, but you know, pairing Demidov up with a countryman could be interesting. In a vacuum, Jesse, assuming Malkin's available, that to me, especially if it's just for 1 or 2 years, we talked about, you know, Crosby obviously would be the better option, but that kind of veteran leadership with a center who can just be a 2C, reliable guy, near point per game near the end of his career, and a mentor to a young Russian guy. In a vacuum, I kind of don't hate the idea of that. What do you think?
Friends of the show will know that I've advocated long for a veteran 2C on the team. Preferably, I would like somebody with a little bit more runway than Malkin, of finding that perfect fit, which isn't always there, but in an ideal world, I think you would want somebody that you can maybe build around a little bit longer after still not having that 2C position not secure for a long time. I think you kind of want to get some stability there a little bit, but at the same time, like, getting a vet in that position, for me, just makes a lot of sense. Like, Nick Suzuki's still a very young guy. We got, you know, Evans is getting maybe, you know, depending on where he stays, if not, but we got a lot of young C's coming up, centers coming up, where I think having that vet presence, especially on the higher up, you know, especially if you got a younger 1C, having a veteran 2C, because within your top 6, having that balance between veteran and a little bit more of, you know, obviously Nick Suzuki's not super young, but I think having that balance is super valuable. Like, winning in the playoffs, I think for me is really kind of, it depends on that type of balance of really having it. So, I mean, there's a lot to like there. Obviously with Malkin, I probably just want a little bit more term, an ideal world. But I mean, with Crosby's going, he's been playing, you know, till he's long in the tooth. I wouldn't, you know, rule out Malkin doing the same thing. A very interesting player, of course, in how he plays the game.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I'm seeing a lot of people saying like, well, he's not up after this year. He has next year under his contract as well. So, you know, an offseason trade could happen. It'd be 1 year, right? You line him up, you keep him and Laine would be expiring. That worries me on its own. The idea that like 2 of your theoretical second line players would both be expiring. One you'd have no intention of re-signing in Malkin, who might retire, and one with Laine who, you know, oh, we're getting some lag here now. We're getting to the end of it. But one with Laine who you're like, you know, obviously it's kind of the same thing. Like, you don't know if you want to extend, but Malkin this year, 34 points in 47 games, and he's making $6 million. Like, it's not that much. Malkin's making like less than Gallagher, just to put that into perspective. So Malkin's making between Gallagher and Josh Anderson in terms of money. He had 67 points with 27 goals last season, 83 points the season before. He is old. He's a bit slow, but I don't think it's that crazy. Even if it's not him, though, I think someone else of that similar note could work, right? Like you were saying, like that mentorship does go a long way. But thank you so much for that question, Ethan. I mean, great discussion as well. Neil said you might get him at a low price because Pittsburgh needs young players. Again, freezing again. Hopefully this doesn't crash. But hey, you know what? We'll start to end it there. Good morning, Canadian Dude in Oz. Sorry that you're showing up a little late. I know the video's freezing. Oh my gosh, Kate. Well, you know what? I think we might have to end it there. I think we'll be okay. But thank you all so much for tuning into this episode. There's only one thing I ask before you leave. It's trying to get up to 100 likes. You guys know that's our big goal. 26 likes away. There's 260 of you in here. If only 10% you hit that button, it'd mean the world to us. It helps us. It helps you. Jesse, any final thoughts before we end things off?
A lot of fun here tonight. A lot of big hockey coming up. You know, how can the boys respond? Laine, Dach going forward will be the big stories. You know, we got hope for the fellas.
Absolutely unbelievable stuff. Sorry I had to do the airport run, Canadian Dude in Oz, but it's always great to see you here. Thank you for stopping in regardless, even if you only had a bit of time. Guys, that will do it for this episode of Habs Digest. Thank you to everyone, and thank you, Ethan, and to Plonko, and to all the others who donated today's Doug. Unbelievable support. We can't do this stuff without you. Thank you so much for watching. And guys, don't forget to go check out the SHL Simulation Hockey League, big sponsor of this stream. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.